On December 5th of 2012, when the police attempted to pull me over on Pacific Avenue in Spanaway, something inside me said to run. I punched the gas, one last burst of defiance. The chase lasted only blocks. As I bent the corner on B Street, I nearly lost control of the truck. I slid and drifted through the backyard of a small apartment building, coming to a stop right next to a big tree. When the officer approached me, he wasn't aggressive. He spoke with kindness, which was wild to me. As he placed me under arrest, something in me was able to release a huge sigh of relief. My addiction wanted to keep using, to stay free, but something deeper understood. The nightmare was finally over. It was a feeling I will never forget. I melted into the back seat and fell immediately asleep. That deep, immediate sleep that comes when you know you're about to be locked up for a while. I was tired. I wasn't depressed. I was tired in a way that meant I wasn't running anymore. I was grateful. I had prayed for death, but instead I was arrested. I was dying to a life that no longer served me. I was separated from the choices that I couldn't control. Thank God for accountability. When a judge said, "You're going to stay here," that's exactly what I needed. Forced separation from drugs and destruction.
My next guest spent 30 years of her life addicted to drugs. From a broken home and an abusive childhood to failed and abusive relationships, criminal activity, and homelessness, and a destiny that seemed hopeless. Until one night, it all changed. And she's written a book that not only details some of what she went through, but a book with a plan for change, a plan to fix broken lives, and a system that seems to be failing on epic levels. A system that, in her words, sees addiction not as a problem to solve, but a customer base to maintain. Ginny Burton, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me, Mark.
Wow. 30 years dealing with drug addiction. I can't imagine. And, you know, I read your book and wow, I mean, I can't emphasize enough how people need to, I mean, there's so much in here that people need to know about the system, about what drug addiction is and what you go through. Mm-hmm. But this hit you at an early age with your mom.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting. I talked about, in the intro part that I read about my own stuff, I talked about my addict wanted to be free. That's like such a fallacy, right? Addiction is a prison. But in regards to my mom, life was difficult. Life was hard. For a long time, I would say that I would never wish my life on anybody. But I'm so grateful for it. So, our parents often are expected to show up in ways that are unrealistic for their experience. They're building the plane as they fly it, just like anybody else. And, we're, at the end of the day, we're just a species of animal that has hardwiring and the drive to procreate for our own, existence. And that doesn't mean that everybody's equipped with the same stuff. I believe that the world that we live in today is, we have all these perspectives about what things should be and how people should show up and what parents should look like. But, arguably, we all come from exactly where we're supposed to come from in order to impact the world in the way that we're supposed to. However, we have a system today that is set up, like you said, as a business model, and we are profiting off of human suffering, where we have taken away people's freedom of choice through these very destructive relationships with things like drugs. So.
Well, and one of the quotes from your book is, addiction is not a disease. It's a series of choices that create dependency, choices that sustain it. And it's choice that can end it ultimately. Mm-hmm. I'm going to kind of elaborate on that a little bit.
Yeah. Well, as a member of a 12-step program, we, sort of designated, addiction as a disease. And I just want to say, in defense of the, community I'm a member of, I believe that it's a spiritual disease. We have a
I
market.
agree.
Yeah, we have a market that has decided to adopt on the language of the recovery community. And I'm not talking about the recovery community that says you're in recovery when you say you are, but the recovery community that says abstinence is what provides us the freedom from, destructive paths. So I just want to say that we also are living in a time where anytime you attach the word health or disease onto anything, pharma to the rescue. So, replacing addiction with state funded, state administered drugs is not a solution. So, but my choices are what landed me in the situations that impacted my life. It wasn't because, I caught cancer through, some sort of thing and I had no control over how it grew in my life. However, the relationship with substances that change the way that we feel can sort of look like that, in I guess in how it kind of overtakes our life, right? So if I go and I use a substance and it triggers something in me, I might be psychologically driven to continue to use that substance until I become physically dependent on it. And so I guess metaphorically it kind of functions like a disease. But again, pharma to the rescue. Pharma to the rescue. So we have an industry, the market has adopted on language that has set large conglomerates, institutions, and corporations in a position to take over the management of that. And now, individuals such as myself are a revenue stream when they maintain long-term relationships with treatment for addiction.
Oh, and I have so many good quotes. I want to come back to that,
Uh-huh.
but I want to touch on something you kind of said earlier. Um, these are just great quotes. Addiction operates like an abusive relationship.
Mhm.
You convince yourself it will be different this time. The euphoria of the first use disintegrates within minutes. The drug is alluring because it promises escape from the very experiences meant to strengthen you. The outcome is always catastrophic. When you call bad behavior a disorder, you give the person an excuse. That's interesting. And you lived it. So, it's not like you're not empathetic. It seems to me like you're calling out the myth that's in the help industry of
100%.
you can't help it. And so,
You poor thing. You
right.
victim.
Yeah.
I mean, I was on a college campus with a bunch of very intelligent, well-intentioned young people who had never been in the circumstances that I was in. I was in class after class with folks who were focused on rights and ethics and while addressing a population that they didn't understand. And that's the same population, that's the same environment that is dictating the market for people like me. I'm sorry. And I ask this in a lot of different political and decision making spaces. Okay, well, if this is first of all, if you think that Suboxone and methadone are the answer, then I want you to do an 8 milligram strip before we have our next conversation so you understand what you're talking about. And number two, what was it like for you when you stopped shooting dope in the tent? And arguably, they commonly say something, and I say they because I've had the same conversation repeatedly. It's almost like there are these, rhetoric bullet points or social narrative bullet points that are sent out through all decision makers in all localities, whether it's city, state, or federal, where people have been sort of indoctrinated to say these same sort of talking points, right? But arguably, the response typically on more than one occasion has been, I have my own kind of lived experience. I'm like, I'm sure that you do, but again, how was it for you when you came up out of that tent shooting that fentanyl? Because don't talk to me about it if you don't know. So we have the wrong people leading the charge. And when it comes to individuals caught in their circumstances, I was talking about this last night at a meeting where I spoke. As a person who was in addiction and committed crimes and abandoned their child or children rather, and did all of these different things that were extremely destructive in pursuit of the next one because I was in that abusive relationship. When I looked in the mirror, I saw for many years all the things that I had done. all the people I had victimized, my children that I had failed, and et cetera, the list goes on. So, when I see myself as defective, which the system supports those narratives, I go to these people that I perceive have the skills or, instructions on how to live differently for answers because I have disregarded myself. And that's the biggest problem. That's the biggest problem because if you haven't been to hell, you don't know how to navigate your way out of it.
That was one of the quotes I was going to.
Yeah.
That's exactly true. I mean, and let's stop there for a second. We're going to bounce around a lot because there's so much here to
totally fine.
hell. I wrote something, and this isn't about me, but this is an analogy I wrote, and you tell me if you believe it or not. And again, for me, I believe there is a God and there is a devil. I believe there's a heaven and there's a hell. And here on earth, we have neither, although we get glimpses. Heaven is a place of absolute joy, bliss, and fulfillment in the presence of our Lord with no more pain, no more anxiety, no more panic, no more fear, no more loneliness, no more depression, no more suffering. Hell is all of those things times infinity. Eternal torment, total separation from God forever. And the devil knows this, and he uses it to destroy. And that is why drugs like heroin and fentanyl are so powerful. He knows that they can give you a small glimpse of what your soul desires. Heaven. That freedom from all the pain and all the hell this world has to offer. Except the problem is, it's fake. It's false. It's not the real heaven. It's only temporal. And each time you do it, you have to do more. Because when you come down, you are cast directly into the very hell you are trying to avoid.
I really like that. And I can identify with a number of things. So my son died in 2024. He hung himself in our backyard. And
Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry.
I'm glad I'm not the one that found him. My husband found him. My brother made a statement. He said, "How do you know that your son's life wasn't intended to impact and influence your path?" And, I believe that everything has multifacets. I believe, yes, that we get glimpses into heaven and hell. I believe that those things do exist here on earth, but not with longevity. After my son passed away, honestly, it was the first time I'd ever considered what really happens when we die. I was really, really obsessed with what's happening with my son's soul. Mind you, I've had a lot of people die since I've been clean in the last 13 plus years. Since fentanyl really hit the scene, I've had more than 30 friends or family members die. But it was different for me when my son passed, and started watching some near-death experiences that very much align. I read the Bible every single day. I have a very strong relationship with God. I've fought with biblical, concepts and a lot of the literature, and me and God have a great relationship, and he uses me, and I'm,
When everybody's on a journey,
100%.
everybody's in a different place. I mean, you look at like Jelly Roll, right? Here's a guy who he admits, I'm still not there yet. I'm still learning, but
we're never going to get there when we're here.
Yeah, exactly.
I was having a conversation. I don't care who it is that thinks they're anywhere. We are never delivered from our challenges, because if we were delivered, what does that mean? Well, then we wouldn't see God anymore. I was having a conversation the other day. I mean, that's just the way that it is. We are intended to be reliant on Him. When I really started to dig, there was a near-death experience that was put in my path of streaming things. And this is kind of how God works for me when I am supposed to reach a different level of awareness. These things will land in my path repeatedly until I actually engage with them. And so, and I hear God. And so I watched this near-death experience thing, and it spoke to a number of scriptural understanding, a number of things that, have to help me to develop scriptural understanding. And so there was a lot of alignment with what I'd watched. I'm a lived experience person. And so what do I mean by that? That means that, okay, I might hear you tell me a thing that aligns with something that I've personally experienced internally. And now I'm going to go search for 10 plus more people who have had a similar experience to try to find out if there is confirmation there. So I started watching a number of different near-death experience things, and I saw a lot of scriptural alignment in a way that I could really sort of absorb and find some belief, right? I believe that there is a place where there's just complete understanding and where love is what dominates and leads. But I believe similarly, this is what has sort of manifested in my personal belief as a result of all of this. Just like I climb mountains, I switched addictions. So I started climbing mountains in my 40s. And just like I go climb mountains, and I'm going to tell you, sometimes when I'm at the base of Rainier and my pack weighs 45 pounds and I haven't trained enough this season, I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't want to do this. Like, do I even like this? And the journey is beautiful. The journey it's hard. It's not always comfortable. But when I reach specific levels of altitude, I can turn around and I can see things that I would never see from here. That pictures,
That awareness comes in.
well, 100%. Well, and when you're at 10,000 feet, the world looks very different. And you see things that are so beautiful for me that they give me like a connection with God that I've never experienced before. They help me to see things that I would never see, not
Totally
even
different
from a
perspective.
picture. When I got to the top of Rainier the very first time that I climbed, I cried because I didn't know it was possible for me. And so those kind of beautiful things, I press myself to do things that stretch me as a human being, that are painful, that are hard, where I sometimes end up injured because the experience is more beautiful than anything I could ever see on a television, on photographs, or from somebody else's words, right? I truly believe that heaven, I'm reluctant to call things heaven, but you know, that where we go after we pass, I believe we come back here to have experiences that our Creator intended for us to have so that we have those similar kind of experiences, right? And so I believe that heaven and hell exist right here based on our choices. I believe that, like you explained very beautifully in your narrative, I believe that the enemy is very present and alive and well. I believe we're currently living in prophesied times. I believe that we are given the illusion, and we see it everywhere in our world. You cannot not see it today. Look on social media. People are driven by fear and insecurity. We are so focused on what happens externally that we try to feel okay by the way that we look and by what we drive and all of these different things. The journey is inward. God is within. And that's the hardest journey we will ever have, you know?
Well, and you said something I want to circle back around
Yeah.
to real quick when you said about the pain and suffering that you've got to go through. You know, we are saved from our eternal damnation, but we're not saved from the temporal things of this world. We're not saved from cancer yet. We're not saved
Well, we're
from
given agency.
right, but
you know?
right, but we're not. We have we're sort of in a way, like you said, we're given tasks to do.
Yeah.
If God took everything away, that would be heaven. Well, that's the whole point. We're not in heaven yet.
Right.
We are to bring that here. Not that you know, we're not still going to go there, but it's our job as believers and followers of Him is to be His hands and feet.
Right.
And
This process here, I believe, is a refining process.
it's absolutely,
and
it's a testing ground.
100%. And I believe that we knew what we were here to do before we came. And I believe there's a forgetting. Because, and I think about this
It gets diluted, huh?
Well, I think about this all the time. If I knew all of the things, then I wouldn't have the experience.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have the experience while I was here. And I believe that the experience is really necessary. I believe that it's super necessary. Like, for example, my son died, my sister died, my husband relapsed, I lost my contract. We just bought this huge property that I believe God told me to buy. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this has all been happening over the last 18 months. And it's been hard. And I've also been dealing with some health stuff with my stomach. And I'm like, okay, like, what do you want from me? And he very clearly has told me that you have to focus on me, that I have to come back and remain in him all the time, that I need
Yeah.
to bring all things to the foot of the
Yes,
cross.
yes.
I have to bring it
Yeah.
all. He will tell me what it is that I need to do.
Yeah.
It's all about obedience. It's all about, we're not ever going to evade hard.
No.
We're never going to evade hard. Everything we as people want is right on the other side of hard work. We want these easy buttons. We're convinced by the enemy that these, that the plastic surgery, the lip injections, and I'm sure I'll offend about 150,000 of my friends or followers because God forbid, we go within. It's like, if you see me in this way, then that makes it okay. If I can look in the mirror at myself, and this is what I learned when I was arrested, Mark, that the journey has always been inward. That when I look at the woman in the mirror and I know that she is who she is supposed to be, and that does not mean showing up in perfection, because that's an illusion. The only time I am in perfection is when I am in my weaknesses and I seek him. That's it. In my weakness, I am strong.
That's right.
And
That's
because what happens, I was talking to this atheist the other day who was confessing their atheism, and they shared very openly. And I was in this place. As a matter of fact, it wasn't even, I wasn't talking to them. They were sharing in a meeting about how atheist they were. And I don't know that I've ever met an atheist that when they were down and in a hard place that they didn't cry out to God. We all do. It's an inherent belief. We have something inside of us that's connected to the Creator.
Yep. There's
To
that
the
God-shaped
divine.
void that can only be filled by him.
100%. And that's what we try to fill with drugs and
Exactly.
alcohol and our
Full circle
appearance
here.
and
Yep.
cars and clothes and the right stuff. And
Well,
it's
that
like,
easy button you were talking about.
yeah, which
today,
doesn't exist.
Well, it doesn't, but today they call it fentanyl.
Well, they call it fentanyl. They call it plastic surgery. They call it fake fingernails. They call it, and I'm sorry to attack women more than anything else, but gosh, we're the epitome of the vision of insecurity and fear. I mean, men do it too, testosterone and with steroids and, our clothes and all of these different things. And,
Well, and I think there's a level of if the barn needs a little paint and you want to put some paint on the barn, that's fine. But then there's the obsession that I see often where it's just everything's about their appearance.
Yeah.
It's like my
I
wife.
am only accepted when.
My wife's beautiful with or without makeup. I think she's
100%.
gorgeous.
Yeah.
When she puts on some makeup and does whatever she makes her feel better, it's even more so. But I don't care either way. But
Yeah.
she's not obsessive about it.
Right.
That's one thing my wife does not. If anything, she's like, I'm, I hear her and I can't go out, just because she doesn't want other people, to have to look at her. That's the way she puts it. And I'm like, honey, you're beautiful no matter what. I think that's just a typical woman thing in general for most women.
Well,
Guys, we don't care.
It's a society demand, really. Like, we have all been indoctrinated.
Oh, yeah, sure.
We've been indoctrinated. Now, does that mean you go out smelling some kind of way? No. But like the point that I'm trying to make really is like, where is your relationship with God? Right? Where is your level of acceptance? Our level of acceptance, and I think a lot of the times people put this sort of
That's your true north.
concept of God on a shelf, like God exists at this date and time. My life is what it is today, and the work that I do is what it is because God is first always. It's something that my husband and I have been together for 12 years. We've gone through a lot of different things. I put him in prison. I am not easy to live with. I'm not. I mean, I'm just going to keep it all the way real. I'm very human. You don't have the kind of life that I had and not Ken with a whole Penske truck full of baggage. And
that's going to be a lifetime of healing too. You're still probably healing, right?
I don't even like that word. It's an overused phrase. And so I think that, it's an overused phrase. There's nothing to heal from. I'm exactly who I was supposed to be. God has intended the entire time to use me.
Well, and speaking of use, you said something earlier. It's like all these experiences you've gone through.
Well, they were
why would
intended
you
to serve
not?
others.
Why would you not? Right? Why would you not now use them to help others out of the
Oh,
same. I've been there. I went through. I was one of those guys. I have severe sleep apnea that I didn't realize it was causing me to lose sleep. It was giving me anxiety, and then I had a relational thing that happened. This is like some 7 years ago, and it caused me to go into something I've never experienced before because I've always been that strong guy, giving everybody else help and counseling, whatever. Went into this panic attack that didn't quit.
mm,
If you've ever had a panic attack, a real, like you can't breathe, you can't see, brain. Now imagine that all day long for 6 months.
mm.
It was severe. And I didn't know the anxiety, the sleep apnea, not breathing. My body thought it was flatlining. Just all this stuff happened. And I had no idea what was going on. In fact, I thought God had forsaken me. And I was just like, Lord, what's going on? Anyway, the point is I went through it. I made it through. I've recovered from that. But it made me more compassionate to people who suffer from anxiety, panic attacks, even drug addictions. Even though I've never had an addiction that I know of, that I have my obsessions from time to time. I'm fortunate enough. I still have more of a compassion for that because I went through something that I used to tell people, "What's your problem? Buck
Yeah.
up."
Suck it
It's
up.
all in your head.
Man up.
And then God put me through it.
That's why I work in a men's
Well,
prison.
he's like, well, yeah. And God's like, oh, you think this is easy for these people? Okay, here you go. And I went through it. And I'm like, okay, I have a whole nother view of people that suffer from these quote unquote mental illnesses or whatever. So
Yeah.
anyway, please. So yeah, why would
Yeah.
you not use your new gifts and perspective?
I
to help
honestly, I
others?
don't think I have a choice. So, and when 2012 happened, I mean, I've always been a version of who I am. Also always, I've had dreams my entire life, that I believe to be prophetic in nature. Have I always felt that way? Not necessarily. I felt like a failure of a human being for a very long time. But God uses that. And so when I got clean in 2012, AKA when I was arrested, the law enforcement did for me what I couldn't do for myself. I had prayed for death and I was not joking. And God did deliver. He delivered on my prayer. It just was a different kind of death. And so, where I'm at in my life today, like God has given me commands. My life over the last couple of years has been 100% focused on obedience. And the health thing, it's like he zeroed it down to different ways that, like, there's no denying that it is God and what he's asked me to do. So, it's when you say it, like, why wouldn't you? It's like, I don't even know that I have the option in the way that it seems like other people do. And I'll tell you what I mean by that. Like, anybody that's seen me in the red jumpsuit, if they Google my name, when I was emaciated and completely strung out, there's a purgatory. I think there's this idea that I was suffering. I was talking to this mom the other day whose daughter is on drugs, and she goes, and she's suffering with addiction. And I'm like, she's probably not suffering. So I wasn't suffering in that picture. And I wasn't. I was not suffering. I felt just fine. And I often would say it costs a
Really?
lot of money to look like this. Now, I cried when I saw that version of me through clear eyes that I had never seen when I had gotten those pictures from King County Jail. But arguably, I was not suffering.
Is that because you
I was loaded.
you were high all the time?
100%, dude.
Right.
Like that.
But what about when you
That's the synthetic version of heaven. I promise
Right?
you.
Oh,
I
no,
promise
yeah.
you. When we have these ideas that when a person is in the throes of circumstances, we're looking at somebody through a clear set of eyes, through an eyes that lack understanding for that kind of experience. So if you're driving by an encampment and you see a person whose teeth are rotted out, et cetera, they're choosing to live there. Now, is it the version of themselves that's closest to God that's making a choice? Well, no, but it's the illusion, right, that the enemy is providing when he introduces these substances. These substances remove all discomfort. Therefore, a person is often not suffering. Otherwise, they would not choose to continue to live in squalor. If they were suffering, they would have desperation that would cause them to seek different solutions. It's one of the reasons that I work in prisons. So
what about the person that says, well, but, and I think you have a quote that says, something to the effect of, it's not that homelessness doesn't lead to drug abuse, but drug abuse leads to homelessness.
right.
And
It's a very small percentage of people who end up using as a result of being economically displaced. So, and that's the narrative that has really been being pushed for more than a decade, is that, oh, there's a higher percentage of economic displacement, right? People lose their housing because when I worked in the industry, which I did for a period of time, I supervised housing case management programs for the homeless. The percentage of people that were displaced because of some sort of economic or medical issue was very small percentage. And those are the people that you're going to see in the service agencies that are sleeping in shelters that are working really hard to get out of those circumstances really fast. So you may have some people that are in cars, but those aren't going to be the people that are in the dangerous encampments. That's not really how it works.
I have so much to say on this too. Some of your quotes, real quick too. Would
Yeah.
you say then that and let me know, this is the quote I'm kind of saying, is mental illness doesn't necessarily lead to drug abuse, but drug abuse can lead to mental illness.
Well, I don't know if that's a hard and fast, stark, reality that mental illness doesn't lead
Because
to drug
that's one of
abuse.
the big things you hear from the homeless advocates as well. These people are mentally ill.
Well, let me tell you something. First of all, if you saw me when I was pissed off at my husband, you'd designate me as mentally ill. I promise you right now. And he would be very measured, and I would be very menopausal. And
It sounds like you got the right guy.
dude, 100%. So, but the reality of designating somebody mentally ill, well, I have a lot to say on that entire topic. I do know some people that have had what we have deemed as organic mental illnesses who are also addicts. For example, schizophrenia. People that have been up on meth for a few days present as schizophrenic, and I've watched the industry because I worked in behavioral health. I've worked with mental health providers who have designated, and this is how a mental health provider decides if there's no science behind it. Okay.
So they're getting
There's a book called the DSM-5.
misdiagnosed. Yeah.
Constantly and then medicated. But let me just tell you, the mental health industry, this is an aside, sort of a squirrel out here, but the mental health industry, I was recently attended this this documentary showing the mental health industry and the pharmaceutical mental health industry is a $418 billion a year industry right now. I mean, okay.
Yeah.
We think pharma isn't trying to expand their business model, we have lost our minds. I mean, and we see that. And so everybody's a revenue stream. Okay. And so the current medication assisted treatment or pharmaceutical treatment solution industry is a $6 to $10 billion a year industry with projections of increasing their revenue to $15 billion a year within the next few years. So do we really think, and let me just say this too, this is how dim society is. And I'm not judging anybody. I'm just like, let's change what we eat so that we have a little bit of clarity, okay? So that we can see things clearly. Maybe get a pair of glasses so you can actually look at the numbers. But we have decided that pharma is responsible for our opioid crisis. Why are we thinking that they're coming in with a different business model in these arenas? Wake up, people. Wake up. We have an FDA that is in place in this country. And I mean, we have there's almost like a reverse flow of employment when we're talking about the people that are leading these large corporations and then working for the FDA. Food and drugs in association with each other. Our food industry is making us sick, for God's sake.
Well, another industry real quick that you said that's big pharma is capitalizing on, in my opinion, is the whole trans thing.
Yes, 100%.
Wrong sex hormones. They're making so much money on shooting kids up with wrong sex hormones.
Yeah, we are castrating our children.
Yeah.
We're castrating our children. We're messing with their minds.
Before puberty.
Well, let's just keep it real. Let's take a look at fentanyl. Let's take a look at the drugs that are coming in. They're coming in from other countries. Nobody has to attack us from the outside.
Right.
We have a government that is complicit
Yeah.
in killing us
Yeah.
for profit.
Yeah.
It's sick.
Yeah.
And I'm going to tell you something. I really thought that this administration would be disruptive, if nothing else. I thought this administration would be disruptive. Kennedy, an abstinence-based recovery guy, just signed an EO that is 100% pharma-focused. We've rebranded it MOUD. And I was having a conversation with a guy the other day who said, yeah, they rebranded MOUD because MAT, treatment, medication-assisted treatment, requires treatment. MOUD, medication opioid use disorder, does not require the treatment piece.
It almost seems like when these people get in there, something gets to them. Something
Pharma,
changes.
it's called pharma. That's the devil. Pharma's the devil.
Yeah? Oh, I agree.
Think about it.
Well,
Think about it. Pharma is the socially acceptable medical prescribed medical school. Let's look at that. Who do you think is writing all the curriculum for medical school? Pharmaceutical companies. Everything. When you go into your doctor's office, what do they say? Well, let me write this out. You don't even have to have a sickness to be prescribed Suboxone today. You just see a thing, you go on to a telehealth appointment.
yeah, no, they got telehealth.
Bro.
Yeah.
And you know what? We are so dim. We are so uncomfortable. We have focused so much on social narratives that have said, you know what, Mark, you're not a good person and you should actually be on these medications. You should flatline emotionally because that's normal. That's normal. Why are we avoiding? It's the enemy. He's been tricky. And I was saying this last night. I've been saying this for a while. The devil doesn't show up like a homeless guy that smells bad with no teeth. He shows up like a fit dude,
an
with
angel of
nice
light,
hair, smelling good, shiny teeth, good smile, who says that any kind of emotional variation is insanity. You should never present, and that's why I show up as myself all the time. Crazy. I talk about all of the things, and I present very, very real in everything that I do. And I say that, yes, you can. Yes, you can. All that stuff is bullshit. All that stuff is bullshit. We are currently living in such an illusion of social narratives that say you shouldn't. And with media, it is influencing our minds in such a way that, I wish that the guy with fentanyl in the encampment was the only thing we had to worry about. What we have to worry about are those of us who think we're normal, who are living in the red, who are driving things we can't afford, who are obsessed with money, who think our lips aren't big enough, who think, well, maybe if I just had a flat stomach and some boobs, then that, you know what I'm saying? Like, we have fallen victim to the enemy's message, and we are not focusing on God.
Well, and to add on to that.
Sorry, I can squirrel out on all this stuff.
And I agree. And here's another thing that people don't, I think, fall into the trap of the enemy is that he mimics what God does.
That's right.
But it's reverse. So
it's
he tells you
synthetic form
it's
of heaven.
Exactly.
And
this is the trick.
It's all of those things.
This is the trick. He says, you deserve this. You
100%.
You are a good person. And he'll always give you something that you can make yourself feel like you're doing the right thing. But there's a trick to it. There's a catch. There's always, just like, the old saying, musicians sign their soul to the devil, but it's going to get cashed in someday.
100%. Well, and to sort of squirrel out a little bit more on that, like, this is the thing, like, what we have to understand is humanity is under a spell altogether.
Absolutely.
Whether it's, like, this is the thing, whether it's churches or not, I think it's really important that we know God, right? You have to know God. Don't take my word for it. Let me lead you to the path and then do the research yourself. I'm going to tell you something, and I like to use drug analogies. I was not going to send my money with you. I mean, I'd sent my money with people to go get me the best dope, and they always did something to it. Either I didn't get my money, they ran off with my stuff, they cut it, or they pinched it, right? So I made a point of making those relationships myself. I'm going straight to the dealer. I'm going straight to the person that's got the best stuff. Why wouldn't I do the same thing with God? Why am I going to take somebody else's opinion about what that is?
100%.
Even our churches are corrupted.
Oh, I agree.
Now, that doesn't mean that we cannot find community is imperative, but know who you're following. If you don't know what that looks like, read your word. Read your word and know him.
Absolutely.
Know what he expects from you.
Absolutely.
Front to back, read it. Don't just read a scripture here and there.
Yep.
Read that book front to back.
Yeah.
If it doesn't change you, bro, I'll give you $100. You reach out to me and say you're full of crap. But, you know, as a society, what we have to understand right now is everybody's fearful and insecure. Everybody. Unless you could find somebody that presses against the grain, but nobody is ever perfect either. We're all susceptible to corruption.
Absolutely.
I mean, and we see it at the
Absolutely.
top. We talked a little bit about this administration. Okay, they just signed the EO for treatment first. It's all pharma. Also, that glyphosate EO where we have, I'm pissed about that one. Okay, but that's a whole other conversation for another podcast. But, you know, we have to understand that everybody's a human. The people in positions of leadership are no more or less human than we are. Just because their bank account might be more, or they have a different title, does not mean they're more or less capable than you to do anything. You see it. You see it with people at the very top. They're getting their lip injections. They're looking at the stuff. They're focused on what they're driving. And they have been corrupted by power more often than not, because that is how the enemy gets us.
Yep.
No God. No God. That is how we know what we're supposed to do.
No, you're exactly right. I mean, you
And that,
gosh,
you know, you'd said something.
you know, you touched on so many things. I want to circle back
Yeah.
around because, and some of these are your current. Let's see. Oh yeah, we have turned personal choices into medical diagnosis.
Mm-hmm.
We have converted lifestyle consequences into health conditions. We have reclassified behavior problems as brain diseases, and in doing so, we have unlocked unlimited Medicaid funding to maintain dysfunction indefinitely, while removing all expectations of personal responsibility. Then you got, because the current system is built on keeping people dependent. It's built on managing addiction rather than resolving it. It treats people as cases rather than humans with capacity. It serves victimhood because victimhood is profitable.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Let me just couple more here because these all disease. Because we have designated addiction as a chronic brain disease, we have unlocked an entire Medicaid apparatus to fund its maintenance. Medication-assisted treatment, psychiatric evaluations, case management, permanent supportive housing. That's something I want to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
All billable, all fundable, all designed to manage disease indefinitely rather than expect the person to overcome it. And you said, ultimately, we don't need more psychiatrists. We need teachers.
Mm-hmm.
It's a business.
It is.
The mental
Everything
illness
in the
and
United States is a business.
drug addiction, it's for you out there that are the no harm or the harm reduction kind of people, you're being sold a bunch of garbage.
Mm-hmm.
And like a frog in a slow boil, it's going to be the death of us. Because again, if drug addiction treatment programs worked and no harm, harm reduction worked, then why is the homeless crisis increasing? We spend all this money, as you document in this book. You have statistics. We spend billions on this, yet every year the homeless and drug abuse gets worse. Well, some could say it's because, and partially, open borders, more fentanyl pouring through. Okay,
They're
that's
all
one
working
problem.
in concert.
Well, and then there's that, right?
Yeah.
But the problem is it, and that's a good point. Drugs come in, we get a system that's set up to manage them. It's just like cancer, right? I believe there's cures for it.
Well, there are, first of
But
all,
it's not profitable.
Well, this is the thing. Not only are there cures for it, it's preventable if we actually cut out a lot. We are what we eat. If we cut out a lot of
Sugar.
the crap, I mean, sugar
I'm terrible.
is
That's my addiction. That's my addiction.
Well,
That's my
and
addiction.
it's real.
It
Sugar
is.
is a drug, and it's a drug, and we're all impacted by it. But let me just say this: like, it's not just people in the throes of circumstances like I was in that are susceptible to victimhood. It's a going social narrative across our entire world, and when I feel like a victim, I feel incapable of leading, of knowing what's best for me. And so I look to these people who have no clue. I mean, it's very biblical. The lived experience, thing, it's very biblical. You can look all in and throughout the Bible. Everything that we're experiencing in our world. And I really like that you had talked about this early on, is that you said hell is a life devoid of God. Everything in our world, I truly believe that we're in prophesied times, meaning that I think Revelation is manifesting. People can think I sound crazy, but go read the Bible.
Oh, you're not alone.
It's like, this
You're
is
not
the thing.
alone.
Even if you don't believe, it's just a book. Go read it. Go read it.
Yeah.
Spend the time to read it, and then come back and tell me if something didn't change inside of you, if you didn't become aware of some things, if you don't understand it, that's okay. Read it again, and then read it again, because we have been, I've been thinking this a lot over last year, like how cunning the enemy is. Because, wow, look at how we've moved millions, billions of people to move in the direction of the enemy. And it's all been dressed in this really, really fluffy language, right? Of how, Mark, you're just a victim. You're just a victim. And if you buy into that narrative, you are going to come to me. If I'm the one that's convinced you, you're going to come to me for the answer. You're going to come to me. And who am I? Well, I could be a completely fractured structure of a human being that is trying to capitalize on the sickness of individuals for my own profit and gain, because I've sold my soul, maybe with or without realizing it. I don't know. Right. And so you are really falling victim to the enemy in that regard. How many people is he taking out with him? So I had God, I was arguing with God a couple months ago, and I'm just like, if we are in prophesied times, why are you having me do this work? It's hard. Like, I am not wealthy. I've lost my contracts. My family and my life have been upside down. God told me, I need you to come to me. Bring it all to me. Bring it all to me. Bring it to me. Ask me first. But he said the amount of souls that have been chosen to go into Sheol, or that are going into Sheol, have not been chosen. They have not been chosen yet.
Or not been chosen, right,
yes, right. So that's what he's told me. And so, because I'm like, why are you having me do this? Because I'm exhausted. I feel like a lone wolf a lot of the time. I don't have a bunch of people. I have a bunch of people that come to me behind the scenes, and they're like, oh, we agree, and I don't always have to have alignment. I had a dream in 2012 when I was incarcerated last time, and he showed me all of these people in wedding white, tens of thousands of people. And I was on this platform over to the side in a blue dress with black polka dots, with a presence behind me, a male presence behind me. But he showed me all these people, and they were beautiful, and they were dressed for the wedding. Everybody was in wedding white, and they were following each other down the staircase, but they were going into the abyss, but everything was bright. Everything was pictured. And he told me, do not follow the crowd.
Wow, that's a great analogy.
Yeah, I mean, it was the dream that I had.
That is the analogy right there. That is it. Everything's beautiful and shiny.
Their hair
right
was done,
on into the abyss.
Their makeup was done. Their clothes were glamorous. And I'm going to tell you, it is hard.
That is from God, for sure.
Let me tell you, he has shown me. He said, write the book. I said, okay, can I maybe pay my mortgage? He said, I did not tell you you're going to be wealthy. I told you to write the book. And so faith and obedience, it's really hard to have when you are struggling. When your husband is drinking, mind you, he's been clean. He's gotten clean again, because I was like, hey, God is first for me. And my life has been whittled down to such an extent that I don't even know how things are going to pan out. But this is what I do know. And that red jumpsuit is indicative of this. I am not willing to disobey the word of God. And I don't mean what's in the Bible. I mean what he's saying to me. I am not willing to disobey, because I know what it's like to live in purgatory. I'm not afraid of it. I'm just tired. And that's the tired that I was talking about.
Well, you've been called. You've been called, and you're not going to disobey that calling.
Ever.
Yeah.
And called has not resulted in a ton of money. Called has not resulted in no more summits that I have to climb to. Called does not mean that things are just opening up and that are presenting themselves without effort. Called means that I'm wading through the mire. Called means that it is often very lonely. I have been shown and am traveling through the narrow gate. And it's just like when I'm out on a mountain. You see tons of people the first 5 miles. 5 and beyond, you're seeing less people. After 10 miles, you're lucky if you see one person every few miles, unless there is a shorter trail that leads into where you're at. I am often with a backpack out in the wilderness by myself. And then when I do finally see somebody 25 miles out, and I'm not exaggerating on this, this is what I do. Then I'm excited to see the person because I know that person is just like me. That person is on a journey on their own, and they're trusting that they're going to make it to their destination. I don't even know that this is a destination. I am not doing any of this with the expectation to finally go to heaven. I do believe that there's a place I'm going to go to. And I don't even know if that's going to be the last journey that God has me on. But this is what I can tell you. I'm not willing to live in the purgatory, and I don't know that he'd let me go if I got so tired that I was trying to take my life. And I've definitely tried to take my life in the past, and I end up having to live through it, which is hard. But this is what I can tell you. This is the arena that God has me working in. We are complicit as a society. Our government is destructive. Our government is following the academic narratives that have no clue what it's like to be here. We are profiting off of human suffering. And the reality that I've experienced over the last number of weeks is that it's not going to be a top-down change. We can only, and it's got to be a market shift. And the only way that the market changes is by changing the people that make up the market, is by changing the people that make up the system. And I work in prisons to do just that.
Well, two things. I want to touch back on something, circle back around real quick. When you talked about as you climb the mountain, it seems to get lonelier. That's every prophet in the Bible went through that.
Yep.
As they got closer and more obedient to what God, they got lonelier. Pick up your cross and follow me wasn't, hey, name it, claim it, wealth, fame.
No.
It was just the opposite.
Well, and those are the things of the world.
Right.
And that's what he's shown me.
Well, and then moving forward now to what you're saying about, the people who are running the system are not qualified. They haven't been where you've been. In fact,
they sound fancy.
Yeah, here's a quote from your book. We don't have to get angry at this problem because the system we have built, it's working the way it was intended to work. More money doesn't mean fewer addicted people. It means management capacity, more facilities, more staff, more jobs, more revenue flowing into organizations whose entire economic model depends on crime and addiction. We just have to decide to stop feeding the beast. The evidence is everywhere. Spending's up, outcomes are down. Ooh, that's big. Spending's up, outcomes are down. Every metric point in this same direction. The system is not trying to solve the problem. The system has become dependent on the problem existing.
That's right. That's right. That's why the market shift has to come from the bottom. We have illusions and we continue to show up. I've got a lot of friends that do stuff. I've really backed off of doing like podcast interviews and things like that because my notoriety and public persona is the least important of the things that I'm doing.
Sure.
What is important, and this is what God said to me, just do what you're doing at the prison because that's where it's all going to come from. So I am teaching the people that make up the system how to have agency and autonomy and authority in their own life. That's the only way it's going to change. If I teach the people what I know about gaining agency, and this is what God said to me in 2022 on a mountain. He said, if they are not clear, they cannot hear me. If they're not clear, they can't hear me. If you're on the sugar constantly and you're on the processed
100%.
foods and you're on the medication, you can't hear him. And there are scriptures. There's a scripture, and he showed this to me recently. Their stomach is their God. And so I believe that is, I don't remember, it may be in the book of Jeremiah. I'll have to look for the scripture, but their stomach is their God. We have all these different things in our stomach that are directly connected to the divine. That's why fasting has been such an important part of
Yeah.
all divine connection.
Mm-hmm.
And he showed me that. And that's part of what he's doing with me, with my health, with my stomach. And so I've had to fast, and he's shown me all of these different things. When we're consistently, there's just like the idea of 3 meals, 5 meals, all of these different things. Those are a fallacy. We're a feast and famine species. Like all these things that we're doing to our bodies, they keep us separate from God. They keep us separate. These are all pathways to the enemy. Okay, I'm going to sound like a religious lunatic, but that's okay. I mean, honestly, I've told God that recently.
No,
Where
you're
I'm just
spot
like,
on.
I'm like, I sound like a lunatic, and he's like, yeah, that's okay. I'm the only one that you need to worry about having a connection with. So the more you sound like a lunatic, the more you're going to dive into my work.
Well, when the Bible says don't be drunk with wine, it's not saying you can't have a glass of wine. It's saying addiction or overuse of something is going to not only open doorways, it's an what is
Well,
it called?
there's
Inhibitor.
a reason that they're called spirits.
Yeah, that's true.
So you ever
but I
done
mean,
Super Smash? I'm
yeah,
telling
well,
you,
that's
I'm a
it.
different person.
Well, no. That's what I'm saying is drugs. The thing is with most drugs, like especially heroin, cocaine, things like that, you're either high or you're not. There isn't an in between.
Yeah.
I can have a sip of whiskey, I get a little
Well, that's
edge.
the same thing with mat drugs. I'm just saying.
What are mat drugs?
Suboxone, methadone, Subutex, buprenorphine, all of those different things. And it's so funny. I have so many people that get on my podcast and they're like, methadone doesn't get you high, bro. When I was strung out on heroin, shooting a 1/4 ounce a day, I would go into the hospital because, of course, I had infections because I was malnourished. And all I was doing was putting substances in my body. And they would put me on high doses of methadone so that I would be so high that I couldn't leave the hospital so they could try to address my problems. So just because I don't feel high doesn't mean I'm not high, right? And so if I gave somebody an 8 milligram strip, if I gave you an 8 milligram strip of Suboxone, or even me right now, you'd be so loaded. You know what I mean? That's just like, if you're used to drinking a half rack a day,
You're at saturation point, so it only
Right.
takes 1 or 2
Well-
and you're drunk.
well, but you might not feel drunk because
Right.
you have a tolerance.
Right. So let's touch on that real quick. Some of the medications used to get people off drugs, you have one of your quotes, the medication doesn't stop use, it supplements it. Why? Because
Buprenorphine.
buprenorphine addresses one symptom, withdrawal, but doesn't address drivers of addiction like trauma, pain, isolation, lack of purpose, poverty. Ooh. So people stay physically comfortable, but psychologically trapped. That is very interesting. And then you go on to say persons described buprenorphine displayed a 24-to-1 to I'm not sure I wrote that right. Higher risk of acquiring new oral health problems. A diagnosis at 1 and 5 year follow-up. Greater risk for oral health problems was observed as early as 1 month following initiation.
People's teeth are rotting out of their mouth because
Well,
of this.
okay.
There are lawsuits everywhere.
Why is that? Because
There's strips. They dissolve in your mouth. So they used to be little octagon pills that you would melt under your tongue. And they're very fast acting, but then now they have these like strips that go along your gum line, and they're rotting people's teeth out. And they have their little disclaimer. No, there are like class action lawsuits happening right now because of it. So we're not looking at the fact that like methadone and Suboxone both have an impact on kidneys, on circulation, on brain. The pharmaceutical companies, I did I looked up a bunch of different articles on medication assisted treatment a couple of years ago as I was starting my own podcast. And one of the pharmaceutical companies says right openly in their information that it blocks people from being able to access their own emotional state. If you're trying to quote unquote get clean and you're coming in and you're trusting an addictions doctor, which they've been indoctrinated with narratives. They'll come into your hospital room and say all kinds of stuff. Well, the data shows, and as an addict, like you're going to already feel like you don't do anything but make poor decisions and destroy your own life. So you're going to listen to this doctor because we trust doctors, right? We've decided we trust these guys. Anyway, so they put you on a prescription. The pharmaceutical company says you're not going to be able to go in. If you want to recover from addiction and get clean, well, you've got to be able to access your internals. You've got to be able to reach your emotional state. Have you ever been on, let's talk about alcohol. Okay. There are a lot of crying drunks, but let's be honest. Have you ever had a conversation with somebody who's super hammered?
I'm in the entertainment business. I'm a musician, and I deal with that all the time. In fact, I've had to kick a few out even recently. No, it's impossible. That's
Right.
sloppy. When I've had too much to drink, the first thing I tell my wife is, we got to go, because something will happen. Maybe I didn't eat enough and I was stupid enough to have one more shot of whiskey than I should have. Fortunately, I don't like that feeling of being that out of control. That's when it's time to get out of here. Other people, though, strangely, it's like, all right, it's time to go be social.
Yeah.
And you're talking to somebody that's just become a blithering idiot.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, your inhibitions.
Well, they're not even 100%. They're
not
not
even
even
there.
aware that they're an idiot.
That's the
I've
thing.
been that idiot. I can't tell you how many times I would get the blackout story. You know what I mean? And I'm like, no, I didn't do that when I was young. You know what I mean?
Crazy.
And this is like my challenge to America. Anybody watching this podcast, and even you, what about developing a life that you don't have to escape from? Because, people say, well, I really want to do this. It's like, okay, but why? Why? Because we're trying to escape or get outside of, I teach a program inside of prisons. I also run a community cohort simultaneously. And part of the requirement is that if you're going through my program, you have to be abstinent from all things. And people get frustrated about it if they're in the community. I'm like, okay, well, but why are you getting frustrated about it? What's your attachment? What's your attachment? What is it that you're doing when you make the decision to pick up, take the edge off? What does that mean? Take the edge off of what? From what? Because life is just so hard.
People hate those questions, though.
They do.
They hate to be asked
Because they don't
diagnostic
know.
questions.
Well, people don't want to go deep.
They don't want to think that deep. Yeah.
Nobody does.
Yeah.
People want the problem to be solved. Everybody wants the easy button. They want the pill. Okay, that's not what we're here to do. And I don't have to shame you or tell you, but I'm just like, if you're going to be in my space, but my challenge to anybody watching is take a week. The things that caused you to be uncomfortable or feel like you need to just take the edge off. Maybe don't do it. Don't do it this week. Don't do it today.
Just
develop
baby steps.
something else. Like, this is the thing. If you want something different, you got to do something different, right? What is it that we're seeking when we do those things? What are we seeking? And this is a message to the women. And first of all, women, you're beautiful just the way you are. Just the way you are. I find so much value when I see a woman age, especially a woman in show business, who doesn't have anything injected in her face, who doesn't look like a monster because she's been putting these things in her face. Because that's
For a long
insecurity.
time. Yeah.
That's fear and insecurity. You're beautiful the way that you are. What are we doing? Why am I doing this? What's the root of why I'm doing these things? What is it that I'm trying to actually get from that? What happens if I don't do that today? What happens? How close am I going to be to the person that I really believe that I could be in my heart? Those things aren't going to go away. As long as we're breathing, we can still access that part of ourself, right? But we have to also recognize if I'm taking a brick out of the foundation, I've got to replace that with something different, right? And I don't mean, okay, well, I'm going to stop shooting heroin and now I'm going to do fentanyl. I might want to stop doing that and like implement some community.
Can I repeat what couple things you just quoted?
Yeah.
I want the audience to hear that again, and I want to remember.
Yeah.
What was the first thing you said about doing something different?
If I want something different, I've got to do something different.
And then the brick analogy. Say that
If
again.
I take a brick out, I've got to replace it with something else. So,
and that's human nature.
It is.
You don't have a choice. You will replace it with something.
Well, we're
It's
all
just
trying
what?
to build from the third floor down. And you being a contractor, this will make sense to you. We're all trying to start at floor number 3.
Very true.
If my foundation is broken, if I start to frame out a house and I've done nothing to the ground below it, my structure is going to crumble. The earth is going to shift. The rains are going to come. My entire framework is going to either be adjusted in a way that destabilizes my construction, or it's going to crumble. When I take bricks out of the middle of my foundation, I can't build unless I do a leveling compound, right? And arguably, our parents are building the plane as they fly it. It's not, and this is what I think is really important. You know, I teach men in a men's prison, and part of my program, I force them, or they can leave the class. It's totally fine, whatever their choice is. I am not accommodating anybody's feelings. I don't pat anybody's ass. They're like, well, what are you going to do for me, bro? I'm not going to put you in my backpack and carry you up the mountain. What I will help, I cannot go and ride my bike and work out in the gym to get your quads ready to climb Rainier. I can't. What I can do is I can show you what I do. And I can help you train your own quads and teach you how to prusik out of a crevasse and all of these things to prepare you to climb that mountain alongside of me. That's what I can do, and that's what I do. I'm not carrying anybody. They say, what are you going to do for me? I'm not doing nothing for you. I'm going to show you how to do it for yourself, right? So when I show you yourself through the work that you do, everything I do, I developed a curriculum, and the focus is really addressing the underlying causes, right? And you talked a little bit about that in some of the stuff that you read. So if you're on the street and I give you a house, well, we're not looking at the things that cause you to be homeless in the first place. If we don't address those things, well, guess what? There's that foundation. There's that foundation. I'm thinking that we can start at floor number 3. Well, it just doesn't work. It doesn't work. We have to suspend the framing by connecting it to the foundation. And if your foundation is fractured, if we're not going in and we're not addressing the underlying causes, if we're not replacing some of those bricks, well, we're going to continue to dump the resources the way that we are as a country.
Well, and you have a whole section in your book, which is it's too long to get into now, that talks about spending, what we've spent. And I highly recommend people get this book just for some of that information. And we keep, again, bringing it back to, we keep spending, especially in Seattle. I mean, the ungodly amounts of money, and things are not getting better.
Yeah.
They're getting worse. So you know, the definition of insanity. What is
getting better are people's salaries. Crony capitalism, right?
Yeah.
The contractors that are connected to the politicians that are signing the checks to build these affordable living units, right? What
does that do? That just puts you in another part of the cycle, right?
Well, that we get to pay for. Let's keep that all the way real. We as taxpayers are the ones that are paying for all of this.
Right.
So there's not just a big old money tree in the middle of government where they get to go and pluck dollar bills off. That's not what's happening. This is all coming through our money that we work our butts off for.
But if they get these houses, is there any stipulations? Are they supposed to be clean? No. So no, it doesn't matter if they quit doing drugs, quit committing crimes. We're just going to give you a house so you're not on the street.
There's a misguided idea.
Sort of out of sight, out of mind.
There's a misguided idea that there are services inside of these places that actually help them to strengthen and stabilize their lives, and that's a fallacy. It's a fallacy. I mean, in some of the buildings, they have alcohol administration programs where they help people manage their money, purchase alcohol, and have whatever. I mean, in Washington State currently is trying to implement a safe supply measure where they have direct relationships with the cartel. I am not kidding about this. There's a SURSAC committee. I actually wrote.
Or are you kidding me?
I'm not joking. Where they have direct supply relationships with cartels, et cetera, et cetera. They're starting to shift the narrative on that. Yeah, no, I actually did a response op-ed, I think it was last year, in regards to this. And so
we're not only are we a sanctuary state for immigration, we're a sanctuary state for drug use.
Well, not even drug use. We want to be able to be the supplier of illicit drugs. And it's not just us. I mean, I believe that they're doing something like this up in BC. Mm-hmm.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, it is. It's ridiculous. We are profiting off of human suffering. we're desensitizing our children to these environments. We are saying, I mean, let's keep it all the way real, Mark. We have deemed, and I have worked with a lot of people with sex offenses. I have friends who have sex offenses, but we've deemed pedophiles as
I was just gonna go
minor
there.
attracted persons. Get the F out of here, dude.
Well, they keep what they do, whether it's abortion isn't abortion anymore. It's a woman's right to choose. They have to change the term so it's not, whether you agree with it or not. Pedophiles are now minor attracted people.
Purpose.
Drug addicted people are just unfortunate.
Well, it's a substance use disorder. It's not drug addiction. We don't.
Disorder.
And this is the thing. And when we're handing out harm reduction supplies at these encampments and propane bottles, and you guys do a lot of that up here in Whatcom, but you know, when we're doing that, never mind the thousands of pounds of this garbage that we have to pick up in all of our beautiful cities that are grotesque today.
And who pays for that?
We do. Well, we pay for all of it. But like, so, you know, while we're doing all of that, we don't want to stigmatize the person by saying anything about addiction or treatment. I mean, come on, bro.
But we don't want to hurt feelings.
Do you think that I don't know what the condition of my life is while I'm out there shooting dope with a dirty needle, getting my, you know, and having unprotected sex, et cetera, to pay for my stuff because I'm being trafficked inside of these disgusting encampments?
But this goes back to that politically correct, no harm. We have to change terms. We have to be all inclusive. We have to make people. We don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. We have to make people. When here's a perfect example sitting right across from me, somebody who the only thing that finally got you off and out of that life was incarceration.
Separation from the destructive path. So, problem though that's happening, and this is happening everywhere, is that we're infiltrating every environment, including the carceral environment, with these medication-assisted treatment drugs. Well, they're now MOUD drugs. We're putting people, every guy I know is being contacted by healthcare authority. I believe it's healthcare authority employees because they're contracted now with DOC to put them on things like buprenorphine, Suboxone, Subutex, methadone, when they and also Adderall. I'm sorry, that's like methamphetamine that's given to you by the doctor.
Yeah.
And even if they've never been on an opiate, what are we doing?
No, something's got to change, and it takes what you say in your book clearly is. In fact, let me read this quote that'll kind of bring us into this. The idea that a former prisoner is more criminal than a career bureaucrat perpetrating destruction is ridiculous. Both are human. Both can contribute or cause harm. The difference is that the lived experiences or the lived experienced person understands the cost of failure because they have paid for it. The bureaucrat only understands the comfort of the current system.
That's right. And we can see that across the board in the book. There's a lot of statistics that are proven by the Form 990s through the nonprofits that show $250,000 to $500,000 salaries for some of these nonprofit leaders that are centered in push policy right in Seattle. They push policy for the entire state of Washington.
Well, there's where some of the money's going.
Yeah, that's a huge part of it.
Upper management. That's always the way it is, whether it's in the school systems, the unions.
Everything.
It's the upper management gets paid these exorbitant amount of monies, and then it's the lower.
Those are tech salaries. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
$500,000 to run a huge nonprofit? Are you effing kidding me? They are not going to be interested in any kind of shift or change. Why? This population pays. It pays. They're a revenue stream.
Drug addiction and people coming in.
It's an industry.
Is an industry.
Well, and it's not even addiction. Like, these are the industries that were identified through the EO on Treatment First. Homelessness, social services, and addiction.
There's your business model.
100%.
Wow.
Get them all sick. And let's look at what we're doing. I mean, this is a completely squirrel out, but our education system here in Washington State.
Tons of
We're
money.
indoctrinating a bunch of social justice warriors that are not going to know how to be successful because they don't know how to do hard things. They're not competent in math, writing, and spelling and science. Well, and arguably, we've discombobulated the idea of science. That's probably another podcast, but
yeah, it's a
man,
whole nother podcast.
and it's honestly the rhetoric and messaging that I've experienced over the last few years from medical professionals and things like that have just been astounding. And we see it all the way up into the congressional level where people are scrutinized and questioned on, the science around biology, for example, right? And you get these very incoherent, uneducated responses because what we're doing is we're shifting narratives. We're brainwashing people. We're brainwashing people across the world, not just here in our country. And, the Gabriel plan, which is the book that we've been discussing, is, indicative of one portion of our country's structure. But it's a framework. It's a framework that is being replicated in every other arena. But this is the arena that God has me doing my work in. And we have to wake up. We have to wake up. We have to understand that our leaders, just because that label is over the top of their position and their name, does not mean that they have our best
They do
interests.
not.
They have their own personal interests at heart, and they're going to have their own day of judgment. But the only thing we can do as citizens is focus first on ourselves. Are the things that I'm doing aligning with the goals that I have, and are they aligned with the flame that exists within me? Because I truly believe that we as human beings are inherently good. I believe that we care about the people next to us. But I also believe that we are being indoctrinated to focus on every man for himself.
I want to do something real quick before our time is up. I call this terms. I'm going to throw out some terms, and I just want you to kind of give the first thing that comes off your mind. Okay. Advocacy industrial complex.
Narrative generation.
How so?
I mean, we've been talking about it quite a bit. All of this indoctrination, it's the language that has become universal to dictate how we function. Virtue signaling, messaging, social media has given such a massive platform to this. We have really bastardized a number of words, and advocacy as one of them. Like when we think about, advocacy, we're thinking about how to make people feel bad about things that we don't always necessarily perceive, but we become so self-aware of what we say and what we do. And it all stems from this concept of advocacy.
Accountability.
Yeah. I mean, that's been a real bastardized term. It's something that I think society looks at as bad because we have decided that everybody's a victim and we've adopted on those narratives ourselves. And so accountability, though, is actually a pathway to self-sufficiency and stability. Accountability helps us to know who we are and how we contribute to the greater good around us. It's actually one of the most positive things that we could ever adopt on.
Abstinence.
Yeah, stopping doing the things that are harmful.
How do you do that?
Well, we arrest it, right? I mean, not just necessarily with the police, but we replace it. It's like that brick. So it's like, okay, what do I not like about myself in my life? Okay, why don't I fast? Abstinence is nothing more than fasting. It's stopping a thing.
Yeah.
Let me see if my life improves or this arena of my challenge improves. And then if it does improve, like what have I done to improve that? Let me replace that. So to abstain from something, in my opinion, is to stop doing something that's causing harm and to replace that with something that is providing growth.
Ooh, I like that last part. That's great. SSRIs.
Yeah, fallacy, no science behind those things. It's an industry, it's a business model, it's one way to generate revenue. And I just want to repeat that number that I recently learned from something that is statistically proven $418 billion a year industry.
And are
I'll
people
send you,
getting
don't
better?
let me forget, I'm going to send you a QR code for that addiction thing. Now,
Okay.
it's through a religious environment, but it doesn't matter.
Sure.
The information that they shared is legitimate.
Narcan.
Necessary, but used as a solution, which is a fallacy.
Yeah, it seems that, especially here in the Bellingham area, I see it time and time again. Where, everybody, that's the thing now is you carry Narcan because you never know when you're gonna. And
I do think Narcan's important.
Sure, no, I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm just want to know.
But I don't think it's the
think-
solution. And if you're my nurse and you're standing in front of me while I'm sitting inside of this facility shooting dope, and the only metric is me breathing as a success metric, that's a problem. That's a problem.
I couldn't have said it any better. I see it all the time. I've even heard of a friend of mine that works with homeless people who carries it. He's even had people actually get upset with him because they brought him saved their life. And he's like, you ruined my high.
Oh, 100%, dude. Are you kidding me? Because you just jolted me all the way into detox.
Reality.
Well, 100%. And now I'm in withdrawal. Hell yes. That's the first thing to piss off a drug user. Okay. They just spent $12 million on a facility in Seattle called the Orca Center, which is a overdose prevention or overdose whatever clinic. I'm going to tell you, those beds are not going to be full. If you jolt me out of my high, I'm going to tell you what's going to happen. Hell no, I don't want your damn buprenorphine or Suboxone that has a blocker in it. Get away from me. I don't want to get on methadone. Maybe I do, maybe because I can sell the methadone, you know what I mean? And I can actually sell the Suboxone too. But I'm not going to have you put a drug in me that has a blocker because right now I need you to get the hell out of my way so I can go get some more dope. Hands down.
All right. That's a great quote. That'll be a clip. Social services.
Yeah. Driven by people who don't know. Focused on inputs and outputs for the organization as opposed to client outcomes. Client outcomes need to be directly connected with the assessed deficit. Period.
So, yeah, again, like you'd said earlier, they're based on more of
how many burritos am I handing out? How many safe use kits? How many showers? How many meals? How many beds are being filled?
Needles, condoms, all that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
That we pay for.
As an agency, I have been allotted these dollars through government funding. These dollars are directly connected with harm reduction kits, meals, and all of these different things that keep people suspended in their circumstances. There's no focus or intention for the person to overcome. We're not looking at reunified families. We're not looking at clean and sober outcomes. We're not looking at stability. We're not looking at economic improvement. We're not looking at any of these things because guess what? An overcome, Ginny, is not a revenue stream.
Wow. Mm-hmm. It's
I
just
need
a
you
big
to be
circle.
sick so I can stay funded.
It's just a big circle.
It is. Yep.
Standards.
We lack them. We're more focused on the industry than we are the individuals being served. We lack standards in connection with real human flourishing and real compassion. Compassion and love are right on the other side of hard work. And when we fail to teach people how to work hard and to accomplish sustained improvement, then what are we doing?
Well, and you have a quote that kind of ties into that I just caught my eye here. A shelter should never be a destination. It should be a launch pad.
That's right. All of our institutions should be utilized as an educational space where people are required to develop the skills necessary to overcome homelessness, on the street should be unlawful. We should have requirements. That money could be spent more intentionally for us to improve our communities, to improve the individuals' lives, to reunify them with their children that are in foster care, to focus on community safety and flourishing.
What is the difference between today's treatment programs and treatment programs of, say, 30, 40 years ago?
Medication-assisted treatment is the goal.
As opposed
More
to
than 80 to 85% of people that have been in the last 3 to 4 different treatment centers that I've been in have either been on Suboxone or methadone. I have literally spoken in prisons across the country where 95% of the women in one women's prison, were loaded. I don't know about you, but when you're talking to a group of people, when you've been paid to come in and talk to a group of people and try to provide hope, and they're all nodding out, nobody can hear you. Nobody can hear you. God cannot get through to them.
wow.
And if God can't break through, they will not recover.
So, as opposed to, it used to be more, they would focus on the
They were
problem.
abstinent.
They're abstinence, right?
Yeah, and so this is where the shortfall is with a lot of, models, is that they focused on one dimension, typically removal from the destructive path, right? That incarceration, treatment. We're not teaching people how to live. And let's keep it real, Mark. I think there's a lot of evidence out there that shows us, and you and I have covered a lot of it, that people don't know how to live. They don't know how to do hard things. So we're expecting, and that's why I tend to not get so angry at the people that are working within the machine.
Because it's the system's
Well, they
working
don't
as
know.
designed.
Well, yeah, they don't know. They don't know how to implement it in their own life. How the hell are they going to teach somebody else? We're calling people with education, with no experience, experts. Get the hell out of my way so I can help my people.
I call those educated idiots.
Yeah.
Because essentially that's what they are. They have a degree, but it has nothing to do with life experience.
And they perform research studies with peer-reviewed information that had never left the sterile environment of our academic system.
Well, that reminds me of, just real quick, back to the pharmaceutical. I used to have a friend who was a pharmaceutical rep, and he flat out told me, he says, yeah, I'm going to be honest. We tell the doctors what to prescribe.
100%.
We go in and we give them samples. We say, here, try this. And where's the experiment?
Yeah, they're financially incentivized when people take the specific drugs. We have, and in the book, you will read about how the restrictions, when Suboxone was being studied, how the restrictions were systematically removed to where now it's an open gate that all you have to do is be a physician's assistant or an ARMP or something like that to be able to prescribe. And so prescribing has gone through the roof in the same exact way as the opioid crisis. We're dim.
Well, I'm thankful, Ginny, that we have you, somebody who's gone through this. It's unfortunate, but yet it's fortunate for everyone else.
Yeah.
And you have a book that isn't just, your displeasure with the system, but a plan to fix it.
Yeah.
A plan, because you have the lived experience. You have, you've gone through these programs. You've seen it all firsthand. So, quite frankly, they say what makes someone an expert is about 1,000 hours of study.
Yeah,
I would say you're an expert.
Oh yeah, 100%.
I'd say you're more than an expert. You are more than qualified to be leading the charge on treatment programs and plans and systems for that. And man, I am really grateful and thankful that you came in today and sat down. And I think that this book is something that everybody needs to, especially if you've got somebody in your family or you know somebody that is dealing with this. And there's a lot of people. Ginny, what do you recommend? Is there a way people can get a hold of you?
Yeah.
Why don't you tell us about that?
Yeah. You can find me on social media, V as in Victor, GINNYBURTON, on Facebook, on Instagram, and on LinkedIn. You can find Modern America on YouTube, which is a docuseries where I tell the real life stories that support this model. But I also really want to encourage you to buy the book. It's the Gabriel Plan, 10 Points to Recover Our Nation. You can Google it. I believe they sell it on Walmart.com, on BarnesandNobles.com, and I publish it through Amazon. My contact information is in the book. So their email, phone number. I do believe I put my phone number in there as well. Blessing and a curse. I answer everybody. But yeah, you can find me, and just please read the book, though. Please read the book. We can do better. The people that make up the industry revenue streams are just like me. They're just like you. They're no different. And they're stronger and they're smarter than people are giving them credit for. But they, just like everybody else, they're adopting on the narrative because it's benefiting them to an extent. And but this is what I want to say, that 99% of the people I've ever worked with or engaged with in any of these environments do not like the condition of their life. So what are we doing? We're just going about everything backwards. It's not a top-down problem, it's a bottom-up. And that's what we do. You can only change a system by helping people that make up that system change their own lives.
Well, and I would say that starts with education, and who better than to have somebody who's literally been there, whose life was at its end, who was given a second chance, who was given a mandate to take her lived experiences and fix what's wrong with the system. And folks, there's lots wrong with the system, as we've talked about in this podcast and as Ginny documents in her book. So if you know somebody or you're dealing with this in your family, get the book, reach out to Ginny, and let's, again, from the ground up, as she said, that's how this gets fixed. And Ginny, again, I am so grateful. Thanks so much for coming in and speaking with us today. And let us know if there's anything else we can do down the road and help you out.
Awesome. I look forward to our friendship moving forward.
Thanks again. All right, everybody. That's it for today. I'm your host, Mark Urban of the Urban Outcast. We'll see you again next time.